All right, welcome back to the FAQ Shack, everyone. Today we are diving headfirst into one of the absolute biggest, darkest conspiracies in the entire Fallout universe. We're talking about the true purpose of that infamous corporation we all love to hate, Vault-Tec. And the reason we're digging into this is all thanks to a fantastic question from one of you, Overseer_Barstow, who hit us with a big one. Were the vaults ever actually meant to save anyone? I mean, that is the question, isn't it? It hangs over the whole series. And you know what? Today, we're going to get to the bottom of it. So on the surface, Vault-Tec's whole pitch was, well, it was brilliant, right? Simple and incredibly seductive. You know, the drums of the Great War are beating louder and louder, everyone's terrified, and in walks Vault-Tec, selling this perfect dream of survival. For a whole lot of money, of course, you could buy your family a spot in a high-tech underground bunker, a vault that was going to keep you safe from the nukes and, preserve the good old American way of life. So yeah, that was the grand promise they sold to a terrified public. Sanctuary from the atomic age. They weren't just selling steel and concrete, they were selling hope, a future. The idea that you and yours could just wait out the apocalypse and then come out to rebuild everything. Pretty great sales pitch. But, and this is a huge but, as anyone who's ever played a Fallout game knows, that whole utopian vision was a complete and total lie. The promise of safety, yeah, that was just the shiny brochure covering up something, well, something really, really messed up. Because the vaults, they were never, ever meant to save people. No, the real purpose was so much more sinister. The vaults were labs. Each one was its own little self-contained, totally twisted social experiment. The whole point was to study people under the most extreme pressure imaginable, and the residents, they were just the guinea pigs.
I mean, just look at Vault 11. It's the perfect, horrifying example. The residents were told, straight up, that they had to sacrifice one person every single year. If they didn't, the Vault's computer would just kill everybody. And for years, they did it. They turned on each other just to survive. But here's the sickest part. It was all a test of their morality. If they had just stood together and refused to sacrifice anyone from the very beginning, the computer would have congratulated them and opened the main door. But by the time the last few survivors figured that out, it was way, way too late.
Or how about the pure evil of Vault 75? It was pitched as this safe school for kids, but the second they got inside, the parents were separated from their children and executed. Just like that. The kids were then put through this brutal regimen of physical and mental torture, all for some twisted eugenics program to harvest the best genes and create a master race. It is just monstrous. And then some of the experiments were just stupidly simple. Take Vault 106. The big scientific question here was, hey, what happens if we just pump psychoactive drugs into the air filtration system for, ever? The answer, and I know this is going to shock you, is that everyone went completely insane and murdered each other. Vault-Tec's big takeaway? Wow, mind-altering drugs alter minds. Groundbreaking stuff, guys. Okay, but here's the thing. This isn't just random, pointless cruelty. There's a pattern here. If you look at the kind of data they were collecting, it's really specific. We're talking agriculture, cryogenics, genetics, the effects of long-term isolation. So it really makes you wonder, right? What kind of insane project needs all of that very specific, very cruel data? Well, it turns out the answer is a project that is way, way bigger than just surviving on a busted-up Earth. All the evidence points to the fact that Vault-Tec wasn't looking down at the wasteland. They were looking up at the stars. And believe it or not, they basically told us this. If you've played the Nuka World DLC, you might have seen an attraction called Vault-Tec Among the Stars. It literally lays out their true endgame right there in a theme park. They were planning for interstellar colonization. The vaults weren't R&D for rebuilding America. They were R&D for a giant spaceship. And once you have that key, everything else just clicks into place in this terrifying way. All those horrible experiments suddenly make sense. Remember Vault 22, the one overgrown with killer plants? That was a test for long-term food production on a multi-generational voyage. Vault 75's awful eugenics program, they were trying to engineer humans tough enough to survive on a new world. Vault 111, the one with the cryopods, that's just developing suspended animation for the long trip. And even the normal control vaults, like Vault 13, perfect for studying what happens to people's minds when they're trapped in a metal can for hundreds of years.
So when you look at it this way, it just reframes the whole thing. What seemed like a bunch of random, sadistic experiments was actually one single massive R&D project. It's monstrous, but it's systematic. Every bit of suffering, every life lost, was just another data point for their secret plan to build a starship and just leave.
Okay, but that leads us to an even darker question, doesn't it? If Vault-Tec's entire grand experiment depended on the world ending, what if they gave it a little push? And that's exactly what another one of you, Starfield_Drifter, asked. They hit us with the ultimate conspiracy theory question. Did Vault-Tec start the Great War? Now, to even begin to answer that, you have to understand just how messed up the pre-war US actually was. So the lore introduced this idea called the failed oligarchy. Basically, it means the government you see on TV, the presidents, Congress, all that, it's just a puppet show. The real power, the people actually running things, is a shadow government made up of megacorporations like Vault-Tec and military leaders, all with their own secret plans. And here's the really crucial part of that theory. In a system that chaotic, Vault-Tec didn't have to be the one to press the big red button first. Think about it. The official government is a hollowed-out shell. You've got these super powerful corporations who are basically running their own shows, some even with their own nukes. It becomes this insane race to the button, where a bunch of different people have their finger on it. Vault-Tec didn't have to start the war. They just had to make sure it happened, so their real project could finally get started. Whew, okay. So let's take a breath and pull all of these absolutely horrifying threads together. Let's recap what we've uncovered. I mean, this really lays the whole deception out, step by step. First, there's the lie. We're selling nuclear shelters to save you. Then the reality. Nope, they're actually twisted social experiments to gather data. Then the true goal. All that data is for our secret project to launch a colony starship. And finally, the end game. We were so committed to this project that we may have helped cause the apocalypse just to make sure it could happen. It's just evil on an unimaginable scale. And that just leaves us with one last really chilling thought, doesn't it? A company this powerful, this patient, this monstrous, they don't just vanish. If they were willing to literally end the world for their research, you gotta wonder, what other secrets are they still keeping? What other plans are still ticking away, buried in some undiscovered vault out there in the wasteland? So, what rabbit hole should we dive down next? What piece of lore have you always been curious about? Let us know. Request your topic in the comments below, and we might just tackle it in the next explainer. Thanks for hanging out with us at the FAQ Shack.